Well, today I would like to introduce Gina Arsens, our first guest on the Good to Grow podcast. She is the CEO and founder of Yumasoy, a fabulous product that is plant-based and a great addition to any meal on your plate. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you very much. I'm super excited to be here, Andrea. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you. So we were chatting before we even started a little bit about your past and maybe explain to people a little bit about what Yumasoy means, because I think sometimes it gets mispronounced, as we understand. So maybe explain a little bit about that.
My family decided to increase our plant-based eating. What I found in the market was either something that tasted really good but had a lot of ingredients that I didn't understand, or if it was really healthy, it didn't taste very good and my kids wouldn't eat it. So I was looking for something that was delicious and healthy. And my heritage is Greek. Both my parents immigrated from Greece, and I was born here, but the Greek culture is quite high. And they have this beautiful saying, and it's a cheers. People say it when they greet each other before they have a meal. It's kind of like salud in Spanish, but it's llamas. And it means to your health, but it's very cheerful. It's very welcoming. It's very open. It's celebratory. And so I wanted to incorporate that, and I wanted it to be yummy. So the food to be yummy. So Yumasoy was kind of born out of those two words, yummy and llamas, together.
Very cool. Very
Thanks.
cool. One of the things that I love about my job is I get to find out people's why. Why they started their business in the first place. And I know that we've known each other for a while. And I find your why so interesting. And I feel like part of it has to do with this beautiful background in food that you come from. And maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit more about your background of your family and food and what it means to you.
Yeah, so I mean, in the Greek culture, food is very central to everything that is celebratory. And so food is a big, big deal. And my father and mother always had restaurants when I was growing up. So I always, and my dad was an incredible chef, my mom as well, but he got a lot of the accolades from the restaurant business. And I had a lot of sensitivities growing up with food. And so I got short order cook type chef-made meals prepared, always delicious, always healthy. And so I didn't really understand the idea of eating food that was not healthy, that tasted good. I just didn't understand why they had to be separated. So food needed to be easy, food needed to be delicious, and it needed to be healthy. And so, yeah, a big part of it is the way I grew up in the restaurant business and around people that made food. And because I was used to convenient, good food, I just expected that, to be in my adult life, and it wasn't available. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a little tidbit that maybe not a lot of people know, that your family had an iconic restaurant in Vancouver for many, many years.
Yes, we had several restaurants in Vancouver. One was the Normandy on Granville and 11th, was there for many, many years. And also the Steve's Seafood House in Richmond for many, many years. And around the Expo 86 era was the Aristocratic that most people remember. So my dad rescued it from it kind of getting shut down and closed up, and he went in. It was kind of a derelict restaurant, and around 1985 he came in, cleaned it up, kind of turned it around a little bit, and that's what we were doing during Expo 86. And I try and sneak out to actually go to the fair. But
I know I don't know how many people that would listen to this would even know
what the
Aristocratic was. But
so if you go to Granville and Broadway now at the Chapters Indigo store, there's the iconic sign still in the corner.
So
the Aristocratic
cool.
restaurant, and that was that.
So
that's
cool.
the connection to today.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Well, let's pivot a bit and talk more about your products and talk about where you are in the market, and maybe a little bit about how long have you been doing this? How many years?
Well, it's been 2 years in the market, and a little bit before that with R&D.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So walk through with us a little bit about what it was like to enter this market, because you had a food interest and a background from your parents, but not direct experience with actually manufacturing a product. Is that right?
Yeah, I knew nothing. I absolutely knew nothing. And I think it's a bit of a blessing and a curse because a bit blind to some of the issues in the industry, but also grateful to have found you. I just said, I need to, start with something in this industry and understand it. And so I did find you, and you were exceptionally helpful to understand the structure of the market, the industry, the players, how it's all set up. And so yeah, today we're in several stores across Canada, including all the Whole Foods, some big chains in Ontario, and some Fresh Street IGAs here, and some good independents that have, like Palm Natural Market, that take on a lot of new brands and do an exceptional thing for the BC market. So,
do you have any tips or hints for folks that are new to the market, and maybe lessons you've learned along the way that you feel like would be really helpful for someone to know up front?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I overlooked a little bit, and it's kind of ironic because my background is in accounting and finance, is I would probably estimate the margin requirements for a product to be double what I had estimated. I thought I had built in a pretty good margin and done a lot of work. But what I didn't realize is two things. One is when you're with a big distributor, they take off a lot for promotions and stuff like that, and they call them manufacturer chargebacks. But it's really a promotion to the end customer, the grocer, and they mark those up, so it's not a straight percentage that goes to them. And given that I have a frozen product, you can buy in bulk frozen at a discount and keep them for quite a long time. So more of my sales happens at sales times than it does in regular times. So I didn't anticipate that difference or the amount that would be on sale. So I feel like once I add a promotion and a discount, it's kind of a permanent promotion and a discount.
That's tough. I would have thought that wasn't quite the case because of it being frozen, right? That people don't really have a massive amount of freezer space. But I do wonder, since COVID, if that's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe everybody went out and bought freezers because it seems like it seems like the frozen aisle isn't quite as dead as it used to be, right? Like it used to be that it was pizza and ice cream and that was it, right? And now it seems really quite full.
Yeah,
a lot going on.
I think that's probably a really good assessment. I mean, I don't know that side of the industry that well, but it definitely there's a bit of an uptick in volumes when the sales go on. People can stock up, and it's okay. It's okay. I love it. I'm super excited when people eat Yumasoy and Om-Noms, and every time they do, I still can't believe it. Yeah.
Is there anything you would have done differently, like just in terms of strategy, do you think? A little bit? Like we look at, we always look at Good to Grow, we always look at multi-market channel strategy, right? Like making sure that you don't kind of put all your eggs in one basket, like you don't put all your efforts towards one market channel. But do you feel like you would have done things a bit differently? Would you have approached it maybe from a different standpoint, market channel wise, or?
Well, I think thanks to the program that I did with you, I did get introduced to food service, and that has been a really great channel. It's a much simpler channel, and the volumes can change and increase a lot faster with a lot less support, a lot less marketing, a lot less.
That's true.
Discounts, promotions. It's a much simpler model, and the volume, you don't get the brand recognition. So doing the combination of the two is really, I feel like a really good strategy. One, to do but understanding that the retail market is a much more longer term investment than it is a business prospect in the short term.
I was just trying to see if there was anything that you could offer that was like advice for folks that are coming into it, because I know that you had some kind of trepidation around it, right? Like around like, I've got all this interest, but not it wasn't, the rubber wasn't kind of hitting the road, right? You were getting the interest, but you weren't getting the sales. You weren't getting the big sales. And so that's why I was wondering if there's anything that you I did early on. I was able to get a broker, and I was able to get a distributor, and I think those two are critical to your success in the CPG business.
both of those, they open the market channels, they open the consumer markets, and without them, it's very difficult to open doors. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But sales overall is something that I think if you come into this business from an interest, a hobby perspective, or like, you have a product, like if you're not, I guess if you got to get pretty comfortable with sales, and it's often not the people that are interested in this business. It's not their first skill. It's not their comfort zone.
Not necessarily. Isn't that the truth?
And that's, I think, where people really have a harder time, because you do have to continuously promote yourself. You have to, differentiate yourself. And most people are pretty humble. Yeah. And so you do kind of have to develop some of those skill sets. Yeah.
It's really hard. And you know what? I come from a sales background, and I remember doing my first demo of pickles. And I think I always say, if there was a camera on the wall watching me, people would have been killing themselves laughing. I think I threw out half of my samples because I found something wrong with every single one of them. And so even coming from a sales background, and standing there and having to stand with your product in front of you, it was very difficult. It's one thing to sell someone else's product, but when it's your own, it's an extension of you, right? Yeah. And so it's a very difficult thing to get comfortable with. Are you more comfortable with it now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Way more comfortable.
Yeah.
The first demo I did, I thought, I don't think I can ever do this again. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my entire life. It was around Christmas time. It was a storm out. It was icy on the roads, and I drove an hour away to the store. I was, beside all the Christmas decorations, and the bananas, I remember, stuck in between those two, and there was 2 ways to come around, and the store was not very busy, but people chose to go a longer route to get to their shopping needs to avoid me. And it wasn't personal, they just didn't want to sample product, right? And so I sat there really for a good long time. It felt like eons, and maybe sold a few. And I've since learned that it, probably was the time. It probably was the day. Probably, a lot of things didn't kind of work out that day. But it took me a long time to do another sampling. And luckily, the second sampling I did went a lot better. So I felt a bit redeemed and courageous to do more. But
it's almost like the universe is asking you, do you really want this? Do you really want to do this?
Because this is how hard it's going to be.
Because here's what it's going to be like.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true.
Oh, man, that's rough. Yeah. So you feel better about it now?
Oh, yeah, I feel better. I mean, when I first started, I think the first 2 times we had consumer, any kind of interactions with the public, I first tested it with my family and friends, and then at the Good to Grow show that you do, I still remember the couple people that came by, and they were floored by the flavor and the texture of Om Noms, and they brought other people around, and there's just so much excitement around my product. And then I went to Planted Expo, and I had the same reaction. I thought, wow, I've just hit it out of the ballpark with this. And then, literally the next time was that one sampling where no one wanted to talk to me. Everybody was avoiding me, and it was hard. And I thought, wow, I wasn't expecting that. This is a health food store. I was really expecting that same level of reception. But people are grocery shopping. It's a different vibe. They're in there to do their work and get their, groceries.
Right. I was going to say, you never did farmers markets, did you?
Well, I do them. I didn't then.
Did. Okay, you didn't then.
I've done them for a couple of years now.
Okay,
and it's
because people want to talk to you at a farmers market, right? They're there to talk to you. Yeah. So it's a little different. At a demo, it's like, I got a shopping list to get through.
Yeah.
But, okay, so
you
found
definitely the most humbling experience of my entire life. And I feel like I've done some humbling activities, but that was anyone wanting to do that. You just got to know that sampling is, except if you're extroverted and you're, even if
even if, like, that's why I'm saying, I had a sales background, and there's something very challenging about standing with your product in front of you. It's a vulnerability that's just not talked about a lot. And I think it's very real for most people. And I think that's also what makes it so frightening for people to stand up and do a pitch, let's say, or anything like that, right? It's, again, this piece of you that you're sort of throwing out in the open for everyone to see, and it feels extremely vulnerable. I think that's part of it as well, right? So even someone seasoned like me, I found it to be very jarring. It was very, very jarring for me to do it. You get used to it, but as you have, but Gina, one of the most interesting things I think about you is I'm always fascinated by people that start food businesses that have a financial background. Because often what I find is it's either people that are kind of production oriented, right? They love to be in the kitchen. They love to make pies. Gee, why don't I do this full time? Or the people that are like, I've got the best product ever. I'm such a good marketer, and so I find a lot of that, but I don't find a lot of people that have a financial background. But I will be honest with you that the ones that do tend to do a lot better than most because they have a really strong understanding of cash flow and projections and things like that. So do you feel like that has helped you? Has it? And if so, is there any advice you can offer to folks that are wanting to scale their businesses and have an understanding of like, hey, this is what it's going to cost you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I definitely can count and analyze things a lot, and I do that quite a bit. And I count pennies in this business. We count pennies, and pennies matter because at scale they add up to a lot of money. And I think it's the first time in my life that I've paid such close attention to every single penny. And a penny more on a label is, a penny less in your pocket, and you multiply that by your volume, it adds up. And so pennies do really matter. And I think I've said that I think now 4 times in this last 30 seconds. So
I'm so happy to hear you say that because it is so incredibly true. But
pennies matter. It matters to, if you want to increase your price by 2 pennies, increase your price by 2 pennies. And I'm not saying that, to be facetious. I do think if you have an opportunity to save a few cents here and a few cents there, it does make the biggest difference. And I think paying really close attention to it all, it is not complicated math. It is quite simple. Add your product units, the cost per unit, and pay really close attention to it because you do get surprised and it adds up really, really quickly.
Mm-hmm. And you were talking earlier about the marketing piece, that's sort of an area that's a little bit like you got to be careful with that, right? Because that's going to really impact your bottom line as well.
Yeah, especially in the consumer focused business, investing in marketing is needed, and it's quite expensive. And so doing samplings at stores is really important so people get, an understanding of what your product tastes like and they feel comfortable buying it. It does surprise me if, an $8 product that you can get some good healthy protein in is, people scrutinize a lot more than an $8 coffee that it's an interesting kind of consumer dynamic. But people really do need to taste your product, and you can only think of how many days do you have to actually sample and how many people. So you're going to have to hire someone eventually to sample, and it's not inexpensive to do that, and it takes a lot of sales to cover even a $200 cost. If you're making $100, $1 per product or $2 per product, and it costs $200, you're going to have to sell 200 products or 100 product to. And in this retail environment, that's not an easy thing to do.
Right.
So your return it's an investment, and that return has to come back at some point to grow but it's necessary. So those kind of expenses, the trade spend, the trade discount, the ad spend, it all adds up.
Mm-hmm. And so do you feel like after 2 years, this is something that you would do over again?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess maybe I'll answer it a different way. I can't imagine doing anything differently. I still am in love with this opportunity, and I think the market, when they do taste Om-Noms, they love it. And there's nothing that feeds me emotionally than seeing something serve people and feed people. And I think there is joy in solving that kind of problem and seeing people enjoy the food. There's just, it's really hard to put a number on that, and understanding how to put all the pieces together in terms of manufacturing, in terms of financial, in terms of food production, safety, distribution. It's a massive puzzle putting this business together. I think like probably most businesses are a bit of a puzzle.
I think food's a little more unique in a way. It feels to me like there's more moving pieces with it. And also just like we were talking about earlier about the different market channels, is different. They cost things differently. They look at things differently, right? They're one's going to have one type of packaging, one's going to have another. Like it's a lot of moving parts. Yeah, right?
And it is a bit of a guessing game at some point. But if I don't know if I would do it all over again. But I can't imagine doing anything else. So that's, I guess, my answer. It's definitely harder than I thought it was going to be, and definitely challenges I didn't anticipate. But that's part of, I think, growing any business, and so I persevere. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great product.
Too. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us, Gina, what is next for Yumasoy?
Well, thanks, Andrea. I hope continued conversations with you are next, and I hope really do appreciate all the investment in this industry and in Yumasoy that you've made personally. So, but what's next is more products, maybe different variations of products, maybe some shelf-stable products. So product development is around the corner, and fingers crossed they come out faster than slower, I guess. So
like in the next 12 months, or
yes, definitely in the next 12 months.
Wow. Yeah. That's really exciting.
But still too early to share, so I can't wait to share.
That's
to come back and talk to you about when that.
You're going to hit trade show season with your new product.
Yes.
That's really exciting.
Yes.
Oh, well, thanks for joining me. I'm really happy that we got this time to sit together and share a little bit about Yumasoy and about your journey.
Oh, wonderful.
Thanks,
It's
Gina.
great talking to you.
Yeah.